What's going on, guys? This is Theodore Helvevere, aka Big Teddy, and I'm here with my sister,
Maine, aka Miss Gapiku, and this is
Politicking with the Bear. And jumping back into the conversation that we started with in terms of this was my number one issue. Even when I was never an Obama fan, there were things that I had to defend because it was conversations with people that didn't understand the way their countries work. So they were like, Obama said he was going to do this. He said he was going to do this, and he's not doing this. And I'm like, listen, if you are the president and your House and your Senate are red, and you are in the minority, how are you supposed to get laws written that do what you want? And even beyond that, how are you then supposed to get those laws passed? The Republicans, it's a written, proven fact, they've published it, had an agenda that when Obama was in office, the GOP's mission was to deny him from getting anything and everything through, even if it benefited the country and people. This is in writing as a GOP mandate.
Yep, it sure was. It really was. That's why when Obama was, when he went to go pass the healthcare reform, he had to push the executive order. And unfortunately, that is the only thing that people remember Obama for, despite all the good that he has done. People only look at it as that because he had to force the hand, because this was something that he was not going to let go of as when he was in office.
And this is the rough part.
He gave to Planned Parenthood, and he supported women, and everything that he's done, people only see that.
Right. And the scary part that sucks is that him having to force the issue and sign executive orders set the tone for Trump's presidency, because the only thing that stuck in his mind was, I can write executive orders. But here's the difference, and Bill Maher talked about this. When Obama wrote an executive order, there was conferences and meetings and committees, and they were talking to attorneys, and they made sure not just that everything that he wanted to do was legal, but that it was applicable, that the states and the people could make it work, and that they weren't just forcing through things that wouldn't have a relevant impact and would fuck people over more than they made them better. Trump just sits down and writes shit that he don't even get, and no one can tell him no, and then they're like, bang, executive order. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about the Muslim ban and things like it. And so the sad thing is that the Muslim ban is one of the least dangerous choices that he's made. But this is where judicial comes in, because the judicial courts, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, was able to step in and say, no, this executive order, aka law, is unjust. It goes against the Constitution. It will not be enforced. Shut it down. That's the purpose of checks and balances and how the power system works when you divide it by three, right? So just to give you guys a quick list, here are choices and initiatives that Trump's administration has put in effect since he's been in office. So put a ban on Muslims, which is over 218,000 Americans, way over that. Gave birth to alternative facts, and we will definitely talk about that shit. Still has yet to announce the so-called replacement for ACA or Obamacare. Threatened to defund a college for protesting against racists, made Australia hate him, made Mexico hate him, got rid of a program that would help new homeowners, thinks that Frederick Douglass is still alive, signed an anti-abortion act, executive order that will actually cause more unsafe abortions, which is the gag law repeal, and we'll talk about that in just a second.
Roe versus Wade also.
Attacked sanctuary cities, and we'll explain what those are. Gave approval to the construction of the pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline, and this is a real sore subject for me. Put gag orders on scientists. Had over 1 million signatures on a petition to prevent him from visiting the Queen of England. Has yet to fully condemn the alt-right, white Nazis. And has yet to express condolences towards the Quebec shooting victims, and made up a fake story to further demonize Muslims. This
is just about everything.
and that's
been in office for 5 weeks.
And
What the fuck?
that's not even everything. That's the scary part, and that's the raw part. So to talk about the gag law a little bit, what makes the gag law so dangerous, and so scary, and a little bit worse than the executive orders, is that it's a repeal. And so what this is doing is not writing new laws that Congress can just, or that the judicial system and the Supreme Court can just say this is unjust and block them. This is repealing new laws that were put into place. And so if he's just taking something away, it's a lot harder to stop it. It's easier to stop the implementing of something new than it is to take away something old. And so the repeals that he's done, like, one of the scariest and most dangerous is he has taken away federal protection for trans people to safely use bathrooms in government and public institutions. And this doesn't seem like a big deal. Actually, it's a big deal to a lot of people, but it is when you understand the trans male and female death toll, especially in people of color in America. You have trans people, which is our highest minority, who die on a regular just for existing. And you have no recorded cases in American history of any trans person committing sexual or any type of assault against a person as a result of trans people getting the right to use bathrooms.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I have friends, we have friends rather, that are trans, gay, lesbian, and everything, and I feel like for them to, who they identify as is who they identify as. I feel like the people that voted for Trump to be in office, he definitely was harping on the fact that they hate specific races, they hate people's genders and how they associate with it versus being just gender fluid or who you are, and they want to find these people that they hate. I feel like this is just another way for them to find them. Like, if you were born a man, supposedly, on your birth certificate, but you identify as a female, and now you have to go into the men's bathroom, all that's going to do is just make people uncomfortable and not want to be there. And that's just like gay bashing or lesbian bashing or whatever. It's going to happen because I think the most feared gender is transgender, because they just feel like something is wrong. I think our Vice President Pence is an extreme homophobe, and just the idea that he wants to build an institution, as he calls it, so that he can diagnose all these people that don't identify them as themselves to be straight, because he thinks it's a sickness, so that he can perform tests on them.
Mike Pence with the electrocution. And you know what the thing is? This is a very touchy and rough and dangerous issue in all communities of color, because it's a big stigma for people of color when it comes to the gay conversation. Like, our community's treated more harshly than any other one. And not just because of colonization and people of color being Christians, which I won't touch on and don't really fuck with. But anyway, but there's multiple reasons in our community that we are harder on the LGBTQ community than other people, and even white people. And so this is a subject that I think is definitely one of passion and ignorance opposed to education. You have a lot of people of color that don't understand anything about the LGBTQ community and have such intense emotional hatred on it, and they're so passionate about it that they don't actually try and learn about it.
I think everything that Trump stands for in terms of not being okay with the LGBT, he's just trying to take a jab at, everything that Obama did. When I feel as though everything that Trump is doing, he is basically just jumping on the back of what Obama did and repealing everything that he did and all the good that he did. When Obama repealed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell and allowed gay and lesbian or whatever people identify as to be open about that in the military, showed progression. When he passed a law stating that, women are going to be paid the same amount of money as men, it's just taking down the post 9/11, the build down of the military. It's a lot. He started focusing on cyber attacks and focusing on everything that is happening outside the grasp of
which is
military.
another touchy issue, because something that's unprecedented in this presidency is the investigation that people are requesting that needs to happen to confirm what we all speculate is truth, that this administration colluded with a foreign government to ensure his presidency, including cyber attacks and email links and various different methods to ensure that Russia could pick who would become president of the United States. And that is something that has never happened in documented U.S. history. Working with a foreign agency to become president.
And I think that just hurts my feelings so bad when I hear it, because I am a Republican, and it hurts because when people hear it, they're like, oh my fucking God, you're a fucking Trump supporter? Actually, no.
So speak on that a little bit. As a woman of color, as an educated woman of color, why do you choose to be Republican? What makes you Republican?
I just believe in the dynamic of the Republican. I just feel as though that businesses...
Is that today's GOP or what the GOP was initially founded on?
What the GOP was was founded on. I just feel as though we've gotten so far from that, and I feel like people just cling on to the branches, well, not the branches, rather, the denomination of, I'm a Republican, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat. I just feel like the Republican Party has gotten such a bad rap because of the Bush administration, and that's why people needed to move away from it. But since I've been able to vote when I turned 18, I have yet to vote for a Republican anything. Living in Jersey City, for Congress, anything. For my house, I've always voted for the Democrat, because regardless of how I feel inside, I just feel like the candidate that I voted for, regardless if they're...
Has to be doing right by your people?
Exactly. It has to be right by me, my people. And even though they say they're a Democrat, they sound like they're a freaking Republican.
So ideologically speaking, you're technically a Democrat. Hold and hear me out, right? So today's current Democratic Party represents what Republicans initially stood for at the founding of their party, and the Republicans have shifted more to what the Democrats initially stood for at the founding of their party. So even though, again, ideologically speaking, you agree with the origin of the views, you, it sounds like, make choices off of what's best for your people and our people. So why is it bad to put the title on that? Is it just the connotations that go with being a Democrat, or because you're pretty staunch in your stance about being proud of being a Republican?
I don't feel like I am a Democrat, only for the fact that they do what's best, supposedly, for everybody, for all the people. I feel like I'm a Republican because what I believe is we are responsible for our own place within the society. I don't believe what I'm doing is going to be best for everybody, because that is not the case.
That's what's up.
What I'm doing is good for my place in society, and what I'm going to do is definitely going to help my people, but I'm not here for the greater good of everybody. I'm here to find my own place, and sure, there are going to be people that are going to be there, but that's the reason why I can't mess with the Democratic Party, because it's like, if you're not here with us for everything, you can't be down with us for anything at all.
See, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. And there's so many things that I want to come back to, but something that I need to toss in and comment on that is, right, so my missus called me a fascist recently, and I was like, oh, that's raw. That's raw. I was like, that's real evil. Why would you say that? And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of a fascist a little bit. And I felt like and that made me look at the Trump situation even more, and I was like, whoa, I need to check myself. But the thing is, the reason I don't put myself in any party system is because I'm a monarchist. But then someone tried to slander me as well, and they were like, and that's another form of capitalism. And the thing is, I can't pretend and deny that we aren't capitalists, because we are. We grew up in a capitalist nation. We grew up with a very business mindset. It is definitely a part of who we are, why we work the way we work, and what we built to do. But the difference in why I label myself as a monarchist, and this is a very interesting conversation, because I've had this debate with my brother-in-law, our brother-in-law, who is, family dynamics, super complicated in our family, but anyway, who's a libertarian, right? And he and I were having a conversation, and libertarians believe a lot of what you just said in terms of how people should take care of themselves and things like that, and they don't really believe in like a certain structured governmental system, which is where you guys differ a little bit. But I was actually arguing of what I said I'm in favor of against, and I was talking about how it's not necessarily, he was saying that a government shouldn't be responsible for taking care of its people. If you don't pay taxes into a system, then you shouldn't be liable to use that system. Or if you want to opt out of a system that you don't benefit from, he's like, if you don't have government assistance, if you don't do any of this, then why should you have to pay into a system that you don't use? It doesn't make sense. It is not fair to people that pay for the system but don't use the system. And that was his argument, right? And then my view, or my argument as a monarchist, is this. The reason, it's the responsibility of monarchs, our people in power, to care for the needs of their people, right? And then people that have power underneath the supreme power have been granted and willed that power in order to help the central authority do that work, because it can't be everywhere at all points in time. Regardless, in a monarchical system, it is, and this is the way I was raised and bred and groomed, it is the responsibility of a leader to care for the needs of their people above and before all things. If a government chooses to take the place of that leader, then they have a responsibility to do for and care for the needs of those people. And that was the difference. Like, good government, I was raised and bred for good government. And when you choose to be a leader, and we have this conversation all the time, because being a leader is very different from being a boss. When you choose to be a leader and people choose to trust you with power over them, then you have a responsibility to wield that power adroitly and justly and care for those people who have given you agency over them.
See, the reason why I can't fuck with the whole monarch, and I know that they have their House of Representatives,
constitutional monarchies, yeah.
They have their parliament, rather, that they would adhere to. I can't fuck with that because of my beliefs as what a government should be and what their place should be in the lives of the people that live in that nation. The reason why I believe that America is the greatest nation and will be the greatest nation is because I believe in the government that is here in my particular area. So in Jersey City, it's an urban area, it's growing, and there's a lot of things that are happening. But I feel like the government that's closest to the people is the one that is needed. So I feel like if I'm voting for my congressman or my congresswoman, or I'm voting for my senator, I want to make sure that I'm voting for somebody that's going to do the best thing for us. I don't like everything that Chris Christie has done. Definitely don't. But do I like a lot of the things that he's done, the big things? Hell yes. Because he came in and he showed us that you can be a Republican and you can do things differently, and you can help with the education, and you can help with businesses and growth, and that's the reason why I like him personally.
Okay. So I have a quote to read that's kind of going to take shots at everybody, right? But it's really important to the tone of our conversation. So again, this is real slanderous, and it's going to get a lot of backlash, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel like American Christians, and not just American Christians, but a lot of Christians that exist today are the farthest from what Christianity should be in every possible way, and this is why I can't interact with mass religion on a lot of levels. But the only person who's spoken out on the injustices being committed against the gay community in the States thus far, or one of the only people in a real high position, has been the Pope. And I love this Pope. I love this current Pope. And that's crazy because I grew up on John Paul II, you know what I mean? But I wasn't old enough to really know or understand the things he was doing. But tying back into just a comment that's a funny comment in the black community, but it's like every day we get farther and farther from God's grace. But anyway, so this is a quote by Stephen Colbert, and it's one that really resonates with me, and I love it, and I heard it, but I read it all the time, and it says, if this is going to be a Christian nation that doesn't help the poor, either we have to pretend that Jesus was just as selfish as we are, or we've got to acknowledge that he commanded us to love the poor and serve the needy without condition, and then admit that we just don't want to do it. Okay? There is a sign that's online, and I love it, and it is from a church, and it is in response to a lot of the negativity that was coming out of one of those Baptist churches that was real bad and real toxic. And it said there's no way Jesus has more of an issue with an atheist than he does with a hateful Christian. You have a lot of hateful Christians in the world that believe if you're not worshiping the way I worship, then you're going to hell and you're living in sin. And this is begin to tie into church and government, because you have churches and church groups and communities that get people elected, and you can't do or be certain things when you run in certain states. But a lot of that has been a racial double standard as well, because the Obamas have been married for how many years? They've been a unified family for how many years? You have all of these hateful Christians that elected Trump and who hold so heavily to their Christian values, but this is a man who has how many children by how many wives, who has been accused of many different forms of sexual harassment, has had lawsuits against him about rape. So how can you claim to be a Christian nation and elect someone that preached and spoke on a platform of hate and does so much to hurt people? Because to be Christian is to be Christ-like. And that means putting the needs, especially if you're trying to tie it into your government, of people who have less and need more and are in trouble and in danger before your needs if you're in a good place.
But I think, see, when you talk about religion and you talk about government, I just feel like they shouldn't even be.
They shouldn't. But America has made it a standard to put them in the same place.
I just feel, for the sake of the conversation, though, Pope Francis, he is one of my favorite popes. Besides John Paul II, because I did grow up with him as well. I think when he gave a quote and he said, "If they accept the Lord and have goodwill, who am I to judge them?" And he released that when he became the Pope, we're 2017, so 2 years ago, 2015 when he first became our reigning Pope. And he acknowledged the fact that there is an LGBT community, and if they are willing to accept God into their hearts, who am I to judge them? Because it is in the Bible, you accept all and everything. He did go on to talk about people judging other people, and he just spoke about all of the manipulated foods that we have nowadays, and then they're able to stem cell and grow things, and there are people that are playing God, and you're not judging whatever the heck is being created because that's what's feeding you.
Right. I rock with that initial quote that you opened up with, because I'm not even just going to slander Christians. I stay away from mass religions, period, because there's a lot of people from all faiths that talk and preach and speak the words, but they don't practice what their faiths espouse. And you have a lot of people that claim to be Christians and claim to be religious, and they turn a blind eye to all of these negative acts, or they use their faith as a weapon to judge others and take away from people and make other people seem less than.
But they do that because they think that they're higher than thou, and that's the
issue.
That the arrogance is just ridiculous. I'm a Catholic. I was raised both Catholic and Muslim, and when I was 13, I was able to choose if I wanted to be Catholic or if I wanted to be a Muslim, and I decided to be Catholic because that's just what reigned supreme within me. But
I'm a very proud and open polytheist, and part of the reason for that, my sister and I got her to watch a series with me years ago, and the series was called Caprica, and it was deep because in Caprica the dominant faith is polytheism. And something that the writer talked about when he wrote the show is how toxic mono religions can be because of this espousement towards perfection. And they create these pools and these mindsets where instead of the ideal where you should be aspiring towards this good, it creates a hatred for people that don't live in and walk that path. And one of the things that I love so much about polytheism is even while it espouses walking towards a higher and better path and ideal, it accepts the variety in people. Even a religion says that we're all going to have different roads to walk and be and feel and do different things.
It took me a while to get used to the fact that you were a polytheist, but big love. It was a very, very popular TV show. But I don't know.
She's talking about polyamory or polygamy, which is a little different than polytheism. So polytheism is having multiple gods. Polyamory is having multiple partners regardless of what the sex, and polygamy is a person or a man or a woman having multiple husbands or multiple wives, but it's okay.
Womp womp, wiggity womp. That was a super fucking fail.
All good.
I was still upset about Caprica being canceled. They didn't even get to go to the other planet.
Such a dope series.